if this has been an error, and who's to know, what it's got to be is absolutely properly investigated by, let's say, the UN. I'm not sure the UN's got quite enough teeth, but it's about the only independent thing we've got available. And to me, the primary thing is this. Those are poor young people, went out there to give a hand to the best that they could. And they're now dead. And I think the first thing that we should say is how appalling that is. I think, sympathies go to all the parents, whatever nationality they were. It's always young people that get caught up in this. I remember my aunt saying to me, wars are made by old men and fought by young. To a certain extent, that's the same now. So do I compare the two? I have absolutely not enough information to do so. But I do think that it is entirely correct that civilians and aid and war don't go together. I don't know what's happened here, whether it's an accident, whether it was designed, whether not proper information was given, whether proper information was not adhered to. I don't know. So let's have an independent group come in. In fact, I would prefer to see an independent group come in full stop and just stop that fighting, get out the hostages, because we're looking at something which in my mind is pretty horrific. It started in a terrible situation. It's not got any better. So a pause, a reflect, and have third parties. That's what the UN's for, after all.
Matt Wrack.
I think if the caller was referring to what appears to be double standards in the treatment of the two conflicts, then yes, I agree with that. I think you can find on the internet numerous examples of British or US politicians condemning acts of the Russians in Ukraine as war crimes. You'll find far more hesitation in anything that is happening in Gaza. The Israelis have very high levels of intelligence to the degree that they can send text messages to people to evacuate their building before it is blown up. It's staggering that they don't know that, therefore, aid convoys are passing through.
Well, they did know, that's the point.
Well, they did know. So, they need to be held to account. I suppose the final thought from me is it is horrific and appalling that people who've gone to aid a civilian population in such circumstances have been killed in this way. But I think we also need to remember that every single day there are dozens and dozens of Palestinian civilians being killed now, more than 32,000, probably several thousand more than that, not yet identified, a big chunk of whom are children. And the whole thing has been a horrific unfolding of horror for the past 5 months.
Grant Tucker.
I certainly don't think I agree with what the caller just said. I don't think it would be deliberately targeting these aid convoys. I think it's an awful tragedy. But that's the way that Israel is kind of using this war to get to its own ends. But I think the thing that we have to remember is, even though this was in a precision zone, it is still a war zone. And it is absolute travesty what has happened in terms of these aid workers, these 3 young Brits as well. I think they should be treated as heroes when they come back, because they've died in the most awful circumstances. I'm somebody who is pro-Israel, and I have to say that Netanyahu is squandering the goodwill of the West. And if this carries on and more aid workers die, we're going to see a lot more ill kind of feeling from people in the West. People like me who are pro-Israel, who think that Hamas should be defeated, but we can't have these innocent children, innocent aid workers dying on a daily basis.
I think that's a really interesting point, and it's one I made to the Israeli ambassador last time I interviewed her, and I said to her, you don't have to make it difficult for people who generally support your cause. But this isn't the first time, and I can remember in the few days after October the 7th saying on this programme, Israel must not do what it's done in the past and squander the support of world opinion. That's exactly what they've gone and done, isn't it?
And how are you going to convince Brits that Israel has the right to carry on taking down Hamas when we are about to bury 3 of our own?
But it's absolutely right,
taking down Hamas, is it? This is destroying an entire region, the entire infrastructure, homes, schools, hospitals being utterly destroyed. I don't see how that's got anything to do with destroying Hamas.
The IDF would say that they have killed, I think, is it 8,000 Hamas fighters they're saying? So to that extent, they have achieved part of their aim.
They haven't how they verify that.
But also, how many have they created? by the level of anger and resentment that's going to flow from this.
That I think is a very valid point, because, I mean, Israel had the huge support of the US, and even the US has now said, well, look, this has gone too far. And so the point about squandering what goodwill there was, unfortunately, that has happened.
Well, you look at the comments of David Cameron over the past few weeks. And, I mean, we've always been considered one of Israel's staunchest allies.
Absolutely.
We're not talking like a staunch ally at the moment.
And we're not. And you know, Hamas has as one of its remits to destroy Israel. So, you know, you can quite see how these tensions sort of build up and things. But
let's broaden this out a bit.
Very bad
Sally in Edgware has sent in this text question. Why are police officers seemingly unable to understand why waving a swastika around central London is so offensive and wrong? Now, for those of you that have been in a cave over the weekend, a viral video clip from Saturday's pro-Palestine march in central London has shown an American woman called Jocelyn Weiss, who lives in London, telling a Met police officer that she's seen a banner being waved which features a swastika. The police officer tells her some context might be needed around the use of that swastika. What context could possibly be needed, Grant?
Well, there is no context. The Met Police should do their job and should be removing swastikas from the streets of London and arresting those who wave them. I think that's a very easy question to answer.
Angela?
Absolutely agree with that. Sometimes the police, though, do get caught between one group and another, and we expect them to somehow manage to get the judgments right. The policeman who said context didn't get his judgment right then. I am one of those, though, who is also concerned about the degree of sort of semi-threatening demonstrations that seem to take place. I don't know, I come into London on business mostly, but I've been caught the wrong side of one of those demonstrations, and I found it pretty hostile. And so there's something about the whole demonstration issue which to me isn't in the right place. And that's not me saying you shouldn't have demonstrations. Of course you should be allowed to demonstrate. And I also think that whoever trained that police officer to say, the context for the swastika, they got it wrong as well. So it's easy to say, what on earth was that chap doing? And I still say that. But the reality is I think the situation is a bit broader. I think that they get caught between the woke and the non-woke sometimes. Whatever they do is wrong. And perhaps we shouldn't go down the woke rabbit hole here this evening. But, let's
make an exception on this programme.
Let's not go there. But, yeah, he got it wrong.
Mind you, might get questioned J.K. Rowling later, you never know. Matt Wrack.
Well, I was someone who was a teenager, went around scraping swastika stickers off lampposts and things and confronting people who were giving Sieg Heil salutes. So that's my record on this. I don't know. It does depend on the context, actually, because
I think it was a swastika on a banner. So we're not talking about multi-swastikas, we're talking about one.
I presume, I'm guessing, I don't know, that it's some sort of argument there's some sort of equivalence here, which again it seems to be in very bad taste to say. Well,
it's not just bad taste; it's anti-Semitic, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It may be anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
No, it is, because we all know
that
the Nazis wanted to eradicate the Jews. Hamas wants to effectively eradicate the Jews as well as the state of Israel.
I think the conflict in Gaza is a bit more complex than that. What's being eradicated currently are the civilian population of Gaza. They are the people who are being obliterated. But
this whole war
and destroyed.
started on October the 7th because Hamas murdered 1,200 Israeli citizens, and therefore
we had this debate, Ian, in October, just after the attack, and you asked me whether it was appropriate, or the caller asked whether it was appropriate to withhold food, water and power. I was unequivocal then. You were equivocal. You said that it seemed to be justified on Israel's part. I've been consistent since then. I don't believe punishing civilian populations is appropriate in war. My position remains the same. And I think my position is the one that's been vindicated by the past 5 months.
I'm trying to remember if I did actually say that.
You did say that.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. John?
What struck me about this story is the incredible level of ignorance being shown by multiple people within it. I mean, how silly do you have to be to think that drawing a swastika on a banner is a good idea? Even if we're sort of charitable and assume that these are not, in fact, openly Nazi sympathisers, they are very, very stupid people indeed, aren't they? And I think there was a similar lack of, at the very least, emotional intelligence on show from the police officer, who was basically standing there going, well, it's not my job if you take it up with the police down there. I do wonder, the extent to which this is as Angela suggested, poor training or whether it's, I just got the vibe that he just wanted the poor woman with the issue to just go away and leave him alone.
I have to,
and he didn't think how this would play.
Because he was there having to deal with it, and he thought, go away is probably better. It's the wrong decision.
I do sometimes feel for the police. They have had a difficult, like their budget has been cut the same as everybody else's. It's not a fun job, but nonetheless, it's a public-facing role. You need to treat the general public with a degree of respect that just wasn't on show.
Ian, I have to take issue with Angela's point about the demonstrations. I've been on many of those demonstrations, and I've spoken at 2 of them, of the Palestine demonstrations. That is not the experience I've had on those demonstrations. They are many families attending, young people, a very diverse group of people attending from all over London and from all over the country. And they are not intimidating demonstrations. I think the attempt to demonise people who go out and argue against a war, that's intimidation. And we have a trend towards authoritarianism in this country and across many other countries, which seeks to demonise people who stand up and speak out on issues such as this war. And we should defend the right to free speech and the right to protest. And I think those... when we look back, the people who demonstrated against the war in Gaza will be vindicated by history.
So to be clear, I wasn't against demonstrations. I've made it very clear that I think demonstrations are fair. But I did say that some of the demonstrations can be intimidating. You might not find them, but I have to say I have found them a bit.
And Jewish young people have found them very, very intimidating, walking through the streets, being shouted at when they've got kippahs on. Anti-Semitism is on the rise in the capital.
There are many Jewish people attending those demonstrations.
I'm sure there are. But there are also many Jewish people feeling intimidated by them.
No, and that is absolutely appalling, and there has clearly been an increase in anti-Semitism since October the 7th, and that needs to be challenged and condemned, and there's also been an increase in Islamophobia since the period. So we've got, unfortunately, a horrific unfolding of events in Gaza, and it's leading to an escalation of divisions here.
But you can go to a pro-Palestinian march and rally without using slogans which people find very offensive, like "from the river to the sea," but also without you putting swastikas on posters.
Exactly.
But most people do.
Yes.
Most people do. There is a structural problem that if you have a demonstration of any size, there are going to be a significant minority of bad actors who want to cause trouble like this.
And the longer the demonstrations go on, the more of those bad actors tend to take part in them. But I think Matt is absolutely right. The overwhelming majority of people who do go on these marches are not like that. But there are too many people that are, and they need to be called out.